I'm just gonna start off by saying that this is one of the best video games I've ever played. Risk of Rain 2 is a 3D roguelike game developed by Hapu Games, and if you don't know how seriously cool that is, I'll give you some perspective. Most roguelikes are 2D, either top-down or side-scrolling, you know, stuff like Dead Cells, Binding of Isaac, and Hades, you feel me? I've never seen someone attempt a 3D version at a large, full-game scale. That is, until my good chum Welven forced me to buy Risk of Rain 2. That's right, I said force. You'd think someone who loves roguelikes as much as I do would be dying to try this game out, but nope, my stubborn ass just thought, well, if I haven't played the first game, what's the point? By the way, Risk of Rain 1 is just like a 2D platformer that has a lot of stuff from Metroidvanias and roguelikes, but that's not too important, so we're not gonna get into it right now. I still haven't played the first one, but he convinced me to buy the second one anyway. It's really good, so let's talk about it, Slimes. There's lots to talk about this game, but the things I'll focus on are the environments, the bosses, the item variety, difficulty, music, and playable characters. First up, level and environment design. The game is split up into a bunch of different and extremely unique areas. As of right now, there are 11 environments and 6 bonus stages, and all of them are cool as fuck. Of course, since this is a 3D game, it's kind of hard to have random level generation and have the game not be a confusing, garbled mess. So it takes an approach similar to Dead Cells, where it sacrifices that randomness in place of really solid level design. You don't always play them in the same order, and you're not going to play all of them in the same run. Since there are usually about 6 stages in a run, and if you can do math, then you'd have noticed that 6 is less than 11. Basically, there's a lot of ground to cover, and you're gonna have to play through runs before you encounter all of them. There are specific environments tied to each stage. For example, you can either start your run in Distant Roosts or Titanic Plains. I'll put a chart somewhere on screen to show the rest, because I'm feeling a bit lazy today. These environments are filled to the brim with fun items, which I'll touch briefly on later, and secrets that can take the form of expanded areas through previously unopened doors. The bonus areas are pretty cool too, with them either being a place to unlock a character, an item shop, or even just a place that houses fun minigames. Hey everyone, Jackson Smuddge Tano here, YouTube's busiest shit taker. I'm gonna do a rather quick review today because I don't have a lot of time left. Distant Roosts, a foggy mountain area with a nice atmosphere and a cool color palette. It really makes you feel like you're on a mountain, a strong 7. Titanic Plains, a large open area with an alright landscape and humongous arches coming out from the ground. I'm feeling a strong 7 on this one. Abandoned Aqueduct, the worst one. Fuck you, 0. Wetland Aspect, a somewhat confusing swampy area with really annoying flying enemies. I think I'm feeling a strong 7 on this one. Rally Point Delta, a fun tundra level with a cool cargo ship area. It's cold, and I don't like the cold. A strong 7. Scorched Acres, a group of relatively flat areas that have a nice anime aesthetic and feature the game's coolest looking boss. A strong 7 on this one. Abyssal Depths. Essentially the hell level of this game. It has a very nice chain set piece, but it can be hard to traverse for some characters. Strong 7. Siren's Call, a very calming area that reminds me of a long car ride home on a cloudy day. I hate the enemies in this one though. A strong 7. Thundered Grove, a strong 7. Sky Meadow, I respect that it chose a color and stuck to it. It's a pretty nice color too. A strong 7. Commencement or the Moon. It's the final level and it takes place on the moon. What else can I say? A strong 7. Overall, I'm gonna give the levels a strong 7. Anyway, you travel between these stages using the teleporters, which activate after you beat the bosses. Now, bosses in video games are usually used to gatekeep the player's progression, and the bosses in this game are no different. When you reach a teleporter, you'll be given a prompt to start a boss fight, in which you'll face off against the game's 11 bosses. Now, each boss is usually specific to one area, but there are a couple that can appear in multiple. The boss fights of Risk of Rain 2 are some of the most dynamic I've ever experienced, and honestly, some of the most fun I've had playing it has just been trying to communicate with friends during one of these chaotic-ass boss fights. This is a double-edged sword though, since the chaos could be really fun in multiplayer, but it can get kind of frustrating by yourself. There have been several occasions where I'll be very confident one second and then limp and twitching on the ground the next. Overall, the designs for the bosses are great, and I only don't like one. That being the Wandering Vagrant. It's literally just a flying jellyfish, and its boss fight is just really annoying. On the flip side, I love the design for the Grove Tender. He's just a big dude with a mask who wants to tend to his garden, and honestly, I respect that. Another boss I like has kind of creepy lore. He's called the Grandparent. He looks like this. And, you know, I encourage you to go research that one yourself. The final boss, Mithrix, is also a really cool fight, and it's the only one that has, like, definite stages. It's also probably the most cinematic fight, and even though he's only a little bit larger than your player character, he's still intimidating, kind of the same way that angry short people are. There are other ways than activating the teleporter to spawn a boss. On higher difficulties, some bosses will just spawn as regular enemies, but in the case of the Alloy Worship Unit, you have to spawn it yourself by destroying 6 of its eggs. Since it's an extra boss, you get a pretty snazzy red item for beating it. and if you're playing on multiplayer and are stronger or faster than your friends, you get 4 snazzy red items, but be careful, this strategy might piss them off. Like I mentioned earlier, when you beat a boss it activates the teleporter, but it also drops one of the many items. What's a roguelike without a shit ton of items? Understandably, there are far too many items in Risk of Rain 2 for me to talk about them all, but I can give you a rough idea of how the item system works. Firstly and most importantly, each item has a rarity, which is indicated by the color of its outline. White is common, green is uncommon, red is legendary, yellow is a boss-specific item, orange is equipment, which is slightly different, I'll explain how in a second, and blue is lunar, which are purchased using lunar coins. Items work essentially the same as they would in any other roguelike. You pick them up and it
increases one of your stats.
It gives you a cool ability. These can range from a feather that gives you a double jump to a ukulele that makes your attacks electrocute enemies. All of them are silly like that, and one of my favorite parts is that you can see the abilities on your character when you pick them up. There's no limit to how many of them you can pick up, and you can even pick up duplicates. This is called stacking. When you stack an item, it basically just increases its effect. There are 2 main ways to get these type of items. Either A, beat a boss, or B, open up one of the many chests scattered around the world with the gold you get from killing enemies. Equipment are a special type of item that basically just act as a tool for the player instead of increasing his stat. These could be either really cool, like the buzzsaws, or really shit, like the crowdfunder. There's also a special type of equipment called elite equipment that basically just makes you do a certain kind of damage corresponding to an elite enemy. For example, If Rift's Distinction turns you into a blazing elite that pretty much just makes you do fire damage. The lunar items have a bit of a fun twist. They grant the player really strong abilities at the cost of considerable drawbacks that can take the form of losing money on hit or making the teleporter zone smaller. You can get lunar coins as a rare drop from a regular enemy, or just by killing the boss or completing a tough challenge. Speaking of challenges, difficulty. There are 2 types of difficulty in Risk of Rain 2. Initial and scaling. Initial difficulty is chosen with your character before your run, and you have 3 choices. Drizzle, which is easier and designed for a more relaxed experience. Rainstorm, which is kind of like the normal default difficulty for the game. And Monsoon, the tryhard difficulty for people who hate themselves. I'm a big fan of how the difficulties are named after different kinds of rain, because the game's called Risk of Rain to get it, cause rain and scaling difficulty is kind of what sets this game apart from others. Basically, the longer your run gets, the harder it gets, and this is shown by a bar in the top right hand corner of your screen that has a timer and a set of bars that go in this order: easy, normal, hard, very hard, insane, impossible, I see you, I'm coming for you, and ha 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 ha. The ha 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 difficulty is endless, but that doesn't mean it's a cap. Everything is still getting harder. There's a lot of very complicated math that goes into making this whole thing work, but I'm not gonna bother trying to explain because it'll just make me seem like a dumbass. There's also a special difficulty / extra game mode called Eclipse that stacks on debuffs after successive runs. After beating a run, a survivor's Eclipse level will raise up to a limit of 8, with each new level bringing a new challenge. They are as follows. At level 1, ally starting health is cut in half. At 2, the teleporter radius is also cut in half. 3, fall damage becomes insta-kill. 4, enemies are 40% faster. 5, regen is slowed by 50%. 6, money dropped by enemies is lessened by 20%. 7, enemy cooldowns are cut by 50%. And at level 8, allies receive permanent damage. I don't understand that one. I've never played Eclipse before, but after doing research for this video, it's made me want to less. Now it's time for a very special part of the video. The part where I'm not in it. Since it's his fault that I'm making this video, and the fact that he probably likes the music in this game more than he likes me, I'm gonna let my good friend Welven take it from here.
It is fucking immaculate. I don't think that there's a single bad track in this game personally. Every single one of them is amazing in their own ways. The game's composer, Chris, did a fucking fantastic job on this soundtrack. Each song fits its context perfectly and does a great job getting you really invested into whatever environment you're in. The variety is also pretty great. The fast-paced boss music and more slow-paced exploration tunes fit in with the transition between each other perfectly. I mean, just listen to this.
Now for the final part of the video, the playable characters. As of the time that this is being recorded, Risk of Rain 2 has 11 main survivors, with one secret one that is not very important, so we're not going to talk about it. I thought it'd be fun to go through this character portion as a tier list, not of how good the characters are, but of how much fun I personally had playing them. We'll go from bottom to top. In D tier, we have Malti and the Engineer. Malti is just painfully slow, and his ability to change between gun types seems cool in theory, but in practice it just seemed kind of annoying. The Engineer is a support type character, and when there's no one to support in single player, he's just kind of really weak. and boring, so D tier. In C tier we have Artificer. I really like the idea of this character, but its gameplay is just really bland. Not bad enough to be put in D tier, it's just okay. In B tier we have Acrid, Rex, and Commando. I have a lot of the same problems with Acrid as I do Maltese, however his design is really sick, so he's in B tier. As for Rex, it's a very similar story. I haven't played a lot of him, so I don't really have a grip on how good he is as an actual character, but his design's really cool, so B tier. Commando is your all around not bad, but not great starting character. I have no special comments or complaints about him, so middle of the road, B. In A tier, we have Mercenary, Huntress, and the Captain. Whenever I play the Mercenary, I just feel really cool because he uses a sword and swords are really cool. As for Huntress, they kind of just have aimbot, but her movement options are really good, which is great for a coward like me. The Captain is just a really cool looking character. I have not a lot of other justification, I just like the way he looks, so he's gonna be an A tier. In S tier, we have Loader and Bandit. These two are my go-to characters. Loader's probably the character I've used the most, and her OP movement and armor abilities are just incredible. It's a lot of fun to just get 4 Loaders together and swing through levels like Spider-Man. As for Bandit, he's relatively new, so I don't have a lot to say, but I really like his design and his shotgun. I mean, just look at him.
Wow, now that was a lot. I'd quickly like to thank myself for helping out with this video. You should go follow me over at twitch.tv/WelvenLive, where I stream half-assed whenever I want. Anywho, bye I guess.